Hello folks, Richard Moore. I'm going to give a brief update on the ongoing saga with corrupt law enforcement. I mentioned in a previous video, make sure I get the right case here. I shouldn't even have a case, really, should I? Yeah, Richard Moore versus Jim H. Johnson, Lee County, Mississippi, essentially. Cause number 3:21 CV 120. And this is in the United States District Court for the Northern District, Oxford Division. A new addition to this is forthcoming. Today I've spent a little bit of time working on a complaint with the Department of Justice, a criminal complaint against Bobby Bean and other members of the Lee County Sheriff's Department, as well as members of the Union County Sheriff's Department. So several days ago, when a couple of dozen sheriff deputies converged onto my property in SWAT-like fashion to tell me there was a warrant for my arrest, of which they did not have a warrant at this time. It had nothing to show me, actually. And it had something to do with Lee County and another county and blah, blah, blah. It was just some Charles Manson stuff. Now, mind you, that these manufactured crimes, this is the ploy, this is the trick and game of corrupt law enforcement. It's the old trick of stalk and stack. They stalk and creep and follow, and they stack and they stack and they stack with unlawful arrest, wrongful arrest, with total disregard for the law and citizens' constitutional rights, especially their Fourth Amendment due process rights. My due process has once again been criminally violated. Union County Sheriff's Department called in for a tow to remove my paid-for vehicle that was locked and secured on my property, to remove it from my property and take it to Kennon's Tow Service in New Albany, Mississippi. And right now that bill stands at $850. As far as we can tell, the only thing that Bobby Bean, the investigator in Lee County, had was a search warrant that obviously he had to lie, fabricate. Folks, they don't have any problems doing this, in order to demonstrate to get this search warrant. Now, there's some prerequisites required to get a search warrant. Those prerequisites were and are lies. You do have to swear and affirm when you give this information to a kangaroo court judge. Kangaroo court judge, as it is still, this is a crime, especially when you're named in a federal lawsuit. And now they're doubling down on this. So is Union County. A search warrant and a warrant or something that authorizes them to remove a vehicle. And this is what the search warrant was. They wanted data and my cameras out of my car. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, they want me to shut up. They do not. They're tired of being exposed. They're tired of seeing my face. They're tired of it. I would be too if I was a hardcore criminal sucking the taxpayers dry and doing everything within their power to protect the lie. And these lies are very, very serious. From covering up murders, and we can work our way right on down. They've snubbed their nose at our federal judicial system. They've snubbed their nose at the hundreds and thousands of men and women that died to keep this country free and to have that Constitution in which they swore an oath to uphold and protect. That individual does not deserve to wear that flag or a badge or anything that has to do with this country. Pathetic is an understatement. Had the audacity, Union County Sheriff's Department asked me how my mother was doing. They get a thrill out of tormenting an 80-year-old woman that's never had a speeding ticket. I don't know what hell is going to be like, but I'm rather sure that there's special places in hell for people like that. Today, my mother was in tears and was unable to continue a telephone call with me. I explained to her that the real possibility of me losing my car. Ultimately, I will be compensated for this. I've already had legal counsel assure me of that fact. But that's neither here nor there. The pain and the irreparable harm that has been caused at this point is what I just said, irreparable harm. It's high time that the citizens and the people in this country wake up and realize that this good old boy deal and these guys with badges are not all you think they are. If you think they're what they claim to be. Placing their hand on a Bible they've never read, swearing an oath to a God they don't believe in, to protect a Constitution they think is a joke because they are the law. How many times have you heard that? They're not the law. They're law enforcement at best. So it is a sad day when we have to. So this is the objective here is to knock me off of my narrative, prevent me from being able to go to the grocery store, to do it, to be able to be an advocate for victims all over this country, because I have to constantly keep the wolves at bay. This is their strategy. Not going out and solving and fighting crime, but suppressing the civil liberties of American citizens that dare speak out and hold these officials accountable. I'm going to continue doing that. If it hair lifts the devil, I'm going to continue doing that. So I've filed a criminal complaint with the Department of Justice and a civil rights complaint as well. That, along with the due filings with the federal court on 2 cases, including multiple defendants, it will be coming in short order. My objective is not only for these people to be censored or to be somehow sanctioned for their crimes, but to personally feel the pain that they have caused on countless American citizens. You see, they don't care. I was told when I was in this Lee County jail and taunted by the jailers, you can sue me if you want, slamming the door and so forth. And through the treatment of this last trip here, which is a carbon copy of the reason we have the lawsuit with them in the first place. Except this time I suffered a stroke, and it where does that end? Where does that end? I don't think it's a bit funny. When the jail administrator, I didn't get his name, screaming and loud, unprofessional. It did not meet. I bet one person, maybe 2, that would rise to the level of professional. But that's a very far shot from being on the level, because they work in fear of their job, in fear of being an American citizen, in fear of what Jim H. You People Johnson and his wrath. I've got a whole lot of things that we need to look at. Fake crimes versus real crimes. Let me give you an example. Back late in November or December of last year. And so if someone knows the person involved in this story, maybe you can pass it along to them. I'm quite sure they will be interested in it. 2010 maybe, or 2000 something model white Toyota Corolla T-boned a rather new vehicle on Birmingham Ridge Road in Lee County. It was a lady driving the vehicle, according to the person that hit her. That was Tanner Vaughn, and she probably saw the tattooed face and the dreadlocked hair and so forth. It nearly totaled his car, and I'm quite sure that vehicle was totaled. I don't know if the woman was injured or not. He didn't stop. He kept going. Now, was there a police report? Sure was. She made a police report. Did Lee County inform the victim that they knew the driver and knew who it was, or did they pretend to just take the report and say, well, we'll do what we can do and leave it at that and let the insurance pick up the rest? I think that's probably what they did. But here's the rest of the story. Lee County knew exactly who it was. But because this snitch that works for law enforcement, that has a free run, and he's one of hundreds that has a free run on crimes of any magnitude, whether they're at the scene of a murder, it's never mentioned because they know too much. Well, if they take one of their rats down, the rat's not going to have that. The rat's going to tell it all. So they protect the rat, but the citizen gets a story. I know for a fact that Lee County is well aware of the hit and run. I think that's a felony. Now, this is not a made-up story, Bobby Bean. As you like to make up these stories in the theater and stuff, and of course, being a master mason, I wouldn't expect anything less, because that is a major part of being a master mason, is being a master at theater. These are facts, folks. And of course, if you're not a mason, then you can ask one, and they're going to lie. If you are a mason, then you know I'm telling the truth, whether you like it or not. And of course, truth has always been problematic with a Freemason. What they do and see and what's really going on, two different things. We all know that. And law enforcement is flush with them. The system is stacked with them. They believe that they've got the cards are in their favor, and that somehow they can subvert and work around civil and constitutional liberties and rights. That's what we're going to have to find out, folks. That's what we're going to have to find out. Vaughn drove the vehicle then to my house. I saw that. I had photographs of the vehicle after it was wrecked. I got a full-blown blow by blow of how it happened. That's how I can give the information to this person who it is. And then when he was on the telephone, yes sir, no sir, yes sir, no sir, he was being debriefed by his law enforcement handler. That's the only time he takes that tone of voice and uses your highness, or your greatness, or whatever type of mentality. So, at the time that this lady was T-boned and could have very well been killed, mind you, killed, that story and them playing the oblivious monkey would have stayed that story. Many times people have died and the truth never comes out. They get a story, but never the truth. I've brought many of these things and I'm going to continue doing that. Chickasaw County, with the murder of Tilda Stevens and the untimely death of Fred Stevens, it was ruled that he murdered her. Then he died from self-inflicted wounds 5 months later in Chickasaw County Jail. It's all a good story, isn't it? Well, that's a damn lie, and they're not what they're not telling you, because if they told you, they'd be telling on themselves. And so as I get more of these stories, and I know this for a fact, I met with them in their house in Oklahoma. A week and a half later, it's a murder-suicide. Begging me to get an interview with the FBI because they felt their lives were in imminent danger. Gave me the names of the individuals, included law enforcement and attorneys, and Gene Barton's one of them. Eddie Roberts. We can go on and on. And I know they want me to quit kicking this can down the road, but I'm going to tell you, folks, these people that are dead, they don't get a do-over. And God forbid that I curl up in a fetal position because my vehicle, my property, was illegally taken. This is not a drug bust where they seize your property and all that. No, ladies and gentlemen, this is some scheme from Master Mason, investigator Bobby Bean, Lee County Sheriff's Department. That's exactly what it is. I'm sure he's got a different story. It's always a story, and it's just and people think, well, they've got it all down. They've got the lie all down. Doesn't matter how good the lie is. It's when you tell that lie, and it can be abjectly countered with the truth. And that person that's telling that lie will have no recourse, no way to backswim out of that deal. I don't know what else is missing from my automobile. That's going to be reported on soon. Violating my due process and punitively punishing me to cause financial burden on myself and my family. We're not talking about just a bond. We're talking about thousands of dollars being spent already if we hadn't even got off first base. This is what happens when you start speaking the truth and you start talking about things they don't want you to talk about. They work for us. These criminals work for us. Are they all criminals? Well, I say the ones that are not involved in the crimes, they know about it. And they're working in law enforcement, but they aren't saying anything because God forbid they target their family and lose their job. Where do they fit in that equation? Those that stand by silently, as Dr. Martin Luther King so prominently stated, are they themselves just as guilty as those perpetrating the evil? Folks, this is no middle fence to ride. There's no middle ground. It's either right or it's wrong. It's either right or it's wrong. As they continue their community-oriented policing, off the book, illegal program, and what they're really doing to citizens, how they break every law in the book, the audacity to catch somebody coloring outside of the lines or anything else to say anything. Isn't that the pot calling the kettle black? If I was that individual that was T-boned, I would be demanding some answers. Now, I've given you enough information that they're not going to be able to say, well, he just made all that up. Oh, I mean, that puts me in the Wizard of Oz category, and that I'm not. They're going to have to tell the truth. They have to tell the truth. And I'm telling you, folks, that is the tip of the iceberg. This is a pattern of systemic corruption of biblical proportions. I cannot emphasize that enough. And those that are playing along with this deal, as you haze and harass and you don't even know what the hell you're doing, just as guilty as those that have no problems with lying. No problems with lying. They will lie and they will protect it at any cost. The world that law enforcement and the eyes that they see out of and how they think and how a citizen thinks is two different things. They show you what they want you to see. They show you the things you need to see in order to get the things they want. New jails, new cars, little Chinese whistles, and all these other things. And they want you to bow at their feet, first responders, and give them free food and have days of worship and all this stuff. And how dare you say anything about them? That's a shame. It's a shame. I'm going to post, I won't do it today, maybe tomorrow. I'm going to post some photographs of an individual a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. I've got all the information here. That was tortured in Lee County Jail. I'm not the only person that was tortured in that jail. Now, what I mean is that they, and witnesses as well to this, very credible witnesses. And one of the most credible witnesses, folks, that you could ever hope for in situations like this is called surveillance camera footage. God forbid that disappears. Oh, you better not. They've already been put on notice. Almost immediately after this fact, they were put on notice. They can't say, well, we don't watch his channel on YouTube. Nope, that's a lie. We all know better than that. So I'm going to show you pictures of, I'm not going to name the individual nor show the individual's face, but I'm going to show some close-up pictures where you're going to see between 50 and 100 burn marks from a taser. Okay? That's tasing and tasing. This, you're going to see the deep imprints for handcuffs. It was cuffed behind his back, strapped in a restraint chair, tased, beat, gagged, and blindfolded with material from a jail outfit, and taunted. And this went on for roughly 4 hours of torture. It was after I made that video explaining these things that the boys in blue showed up in full color. They converged on my house. They stole my vehicle. They threw me in jail. They forced and induced a stroke. And once again, they're dragging and violating and denying due process, denying my civil liberties and constitutional rights, which none of these things are covered by qualified immunity. Give me a break. And these judges that have signed these bogus warrants and backdated these warrants, if you think you've got judicial immunity, think again. Now be a good time to separate yourself from this pile of shit, or be balls to the wall in it. That's your call. I'm not the only one that's bringing attention to this. We're going to bring so much attention to this that the Department of Justice will have no alternative but to investigate, and starting with misuse of federal funds. How can they meet that bar of misusing federal funds? I'll tell you how. You get federal funds and you're deliberately, willfully, and recklessly denying and violating people's constitutional rights. That's misuse of federal funds. It's that simple. Well, how'd you do it? Well, torturing people would meet that bar. I don't think it can get any higher than that. Torturing an individual. And that's torture. That's torture. And you've got that going on. This is systemic, folks. I can give you accounts after accounts after accounts of people that have gone through this. I don't know how many, the death count, or if there is a death count. I would venture to say that it would just about have to be. And of course, those would be investigated by MBI. That's called the Fox Garden and Hen House, boys and girls. That's all it is. So, many people are scared to speak out because it's law enforcement and their proclivity to murder and their proclivity to false charges, their proclivity to disrupt everything about a victim's life if that victim points the finger at them. But folks, let me tell you what. I did not sign on thinking that this was going to be a picnic. And so I am suffering the brunt end of that deal. I'm asking you once again, all my viewers, if you didn't do it before, do it now, to share this video, subscribe, and you can check that little tab on there when you subscribe to receive notifications. And then when a new video is posted, you'll be notified and you won't miss anything. There's also instructions on there how to get in touch with me more and how to support what's going on. I've got to ransom my vehicle. We're at $850, and that's what I need to raise. And I shouldn't have to go public with raising funds in order to ransom my property. I will be compensated for all of these things, including the attorney's fees and so forth. That is a no-brainer. But right now, for those that can, I have my cash app, cash tag. I also have a GoFundMe. That is delayed 4 to 6 days from the time a person donates through that. The quickest way, of course, is cash out. And of course, I ask all of you for your prayers. And that's the most important thing, are your prayers. I'm here today because God saw to it that I'd be here today. If it were up to these corrupt people, I'd have been gone a long time ago. Matter of fact, they're confused at why I'm still alive and why I'm still doing what I'm doing. Not only am I doing it, I'm thriving. And what was designed when they made me unemployable. God takes those things, what evil meant for destruction, and turns it for the good, for those that love God. That is your little mathematical equation. This is what they hate. They go to fake churches and they're fake Christians, and they have all these things, that drumbeat. And folks, God doesn't talk out of both sides of his mouth. God doesn't support me in what I do and then support them in what they do, and them two things work against each other. God will never allow one of his to come against one of his own. That doesn't happen because they're the same spirit, that kindred spirit. But to come after a person relentlessly with wrongful arrest and convictions that I've had to deal with for 20 years, and they dig their heels in further to protect that lie. These are not godly people. These are not godly people. A godly person will stand up. Whatever's done in the darkness, proclaim it on the housetops. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm asking for your support. Because folks, let me tell you, I'm not the only person that's speaking up. I'm not the only person. I do what I do. And if God sees fit for me to make it through that day, then God has seen fit to make it through that day. And whatever tomorrow holds is in His hand. It's not in their hand. It's not in the world's hand. It's not in the devil's hand. This is spiritual warfare that I've just described to you, and it, of course, manifests itself through individuals and their actions and their behaviors. Everything they did was a deliberate jab, because I got them in court, and I'm fighting the best I can with facts. And they've got lawyers that stand by and watch them do this. Without saying, maybe we need to sit down with this here a minute, because, but they're not doing that. It's all about the money. It's all about the money. That's why they're dragging me financially. In their minds, they worship. Their God is money. And so when they come at you, that's where they hit you. They hit you in the pocketbook first. My Father owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He owns all the hills. And He will supply all my needs according to His riches and glory. And so I proclaim it publicly. I'm not a closeted Christian that I've plenty of a flawed human being. Make plenty of mistakes. I'm still a work in progress. And for those that do not feel like they're a work in progress, are liars. He'll be working on me until He calls me home. That's when I'll be complete. Not a minute until. Every day, I strive to make improvements. And folks, every day, I am more resolved than I was yesterday to be an advocate and warrior for victims across this country. What goes on in federal courts here has national implications that will stagger the imagination. We're sitting on the cases right now that I'm sitting on are absolute prime cases for the Supreme Court of the United States. There's nothing within my body, my spirit, that tells me that is not a realistic possibility. They hear very few cases. This involves millions of Americans. And it's a very serious case. It's a correction that needs to take place. Now, how many people that will fall and perish by the wayside on that journey to get it there, I don't know, and I may be one of them. But I know one thing, that it will end with me taking that journey, not sitting down and shutting up and refusing to accept a lie and corruption as that's just the way it is. It's not. Let me hear from you. I've heard from many of you, and so I have thanked you personally. You know who you are. I've given you all the dollar amount, and the rest is in God's hand. Share, subscribe, like. Until next time, God bless you.